Okay, so what we've been talking about is the four sides of yourself: the good you are aware of, the bad you are aware of, the bad you are managing. Number three, the good you are unaware of. And then number four, the bad you are unaware of. So, the good you are aware of, the bad you are aware of, the good you are unconscious of, the bad you are unconscious of. So, those are the four sides of yourself. And the grand division between those four items is that the two you are aware of, the two you are conscious of, those are at the front of the house. The front of the house has got the good windows, the front of the house has got the good tables, the front of the house has the good file cabinets. Everything is visible, everything is conscious, everything is present. Okay? Now, in the back of the house, there's another room. There's no electricity. There's never going to be electricity. There's no tables, there's no file cabinets, there's no shelves. It's just a mess. You need to pull it out of that back room. You need to pull it out of the dark room. You need to get it to the front of the house where there's the good light and the good tables so that you can come to terms with it, that you can rationalize it, that you can own it. You can integrate it. Okay? You can own it and you can integrate it. So here's what I'm getting at. Number one, what's the benefit of this? Number one, if you know exactly who you are and what you're doing and what your challenges are, then there's yeah, your life's gonna get hard every now and then, but it's just like, okay, I know what's going on. And you can start looking towards the good you're creating, you can start looking towards the value you're creating. And you can start saying, you know what? Yeah, I've got these situations I'm working on. All right. I've got these good situations that I'm aware of. I've got these bad situations I'm aware of. And there's also good and bad that I'm unaware of. Right. But I own the good. So my life has some value. My life has some meaning. But I mean, ultimately, what we're trying to get towards here is that we want everything to be present. We want everything to be conscious. We want everything to be visible. Good, bad, or indifferent. We want it all on the table. You got to own it. You've got to accept it. You've got to come to terms with it. You've got to organize it, and you've got to manage it, and you've got to harness it. Manage and harness. You're going to manage your bad. You're going to harness your good. Okay? So, like I said, the image that we're presenting here is that there's two rooms in a house. There's the front of the house. It's got the windows. It's got the tables. It's got the file cabinets. That's the front of the house. You already know what's going on in there. Everything that's good, you see it. Everything bad, you see it. And you're taking steps to deal with both of those. The second room in the back of the house is that there's no electricity, there's no tables, there's no cabinets, there's nothing. Just a pile. You need to grab those items, maybe one at a time. You need to pull them out of that back room. You need to put them out to the front room. And then you need to put it on the table and say, is this good or is this bad? And then you can decide what you're going to do with it then. You're going to decide, am I going to put this in the good pile? Am I going to put this in the bad pile? Am I going to put this in the good file cabinet? Am I going to put this in the bad file cabinet? It's up to you at that point. But the idea is that you want to have that back room, the room with no electricity, the room with no tables, with no file cabinets, with no shelves. You want that room to be as empty as possible. You want that back room to be as empty as possible. So then that way you know exactly who you are. You know exactly what you're doing. You know exactly what you're capable of. Now, like I said, that room, I don't think you're ever going to get it completely empty. I'm just speaking, just this is just my assumption here. I don't think that back room's ever going to get completely empty. So it's okay if it seems like it's a never ending task. In a way, it probably is. But you can rest easy knowing that you've at least saying, hey, you know what? I've got 50 things out of it. And it turns out 45 of them are really good. And it turns out the 5 that were bad, I was about to head off a cliff if I wasn't aware of those. Sounds like an improvement to me. So, and I would also say this is that number one, that room may never get completely empty. You might not be physically able to pull everything out at once. It might take years, it might take decades to pull out some of the bigger items in that room. It might take decades for the item to spawn in that room. You might be 55 years old and a brand new thing just popped out of thin air in that room. Yeah, it happens. It's some traumatic event could have happened in your late 40s, and the way you responded to that trauma created a situation, and now that situation's in your back room. It happens. So don't assume that that room needs to be completely empty. Don't assume that. I think there's a lot that we just physically cannot come to terms with, but there's a lot that we can. And that's what we need to focus on. We need to focus on what we can do. We need to focus on what we can improve. We need to focus on what we can manage. So empty out your back room as much as possible. And I would just say this, guys. Yes, it's going to be a little scary because you don't know what you're dealing with. But you need to clear out your back room. And here's why that's good, because you get to own the benefits. You get to own the reward. That is completely your reward. That is your treasure. That is your accomplishment. That is your victory, not mine. Because you pulled it out the back, you got it out to the front, you washed it off, you wiped it off. You're saying, you know what? We need to get that categorized in the good pile, or holy crap, we need to get that categorized in the bad pile right now. Otherwise, I'm going to be pushing up daisies in 5 years. It can happen. But the point is, you did it, not me. And not your therapist, and not your priest, and not your spouse, and not your parents, not your teacher, not your boss. You did it. So therefore, you should get the reward. You should get the recognition. And the recognition is that you become a more whole and complete person. So to me, it's all positive. It's all on the upside. Even if it is a bad situation, even if it is a bad habit, by you being aware of it, you can start managing it. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. So like I said, we got the 4 things. The good you're aware of, the bad you're aware of, the good that is hidden, and the bad that is hidden. The idea is we want as much of those 2 hidden items, we want those pulled out. We want those brought out. We want those categorized. We want those visible. Because there's the visible and the hidden. We already know what's visible. The visible we already see. We already work with the visible. We already know what's happening. It's the hidden. We got to get what's hidden and we got to make it visible, because then we can start working with it. So hopefully that makes sense. And I really hope that this lesson will be beneficial for you guys. Now, like I said, just as a little disclaimer again, this is an idea that I came up with and I'm working through this as we speak. But I think if you just say that there's 4 sides of us, then that kind of explains a lot. And I think it's great, because then we can kind of categorize and organize ourselves, and then we can start pulling from all 4 of those spaces at once to be a complete person. All right, guys, I'll see you for the next one. See ya.